What if I told you that your cat doesn't love you the way your dog does? It may sound a little harsh, but according to many scientists, cats are one of the only animals that have lived beside humans without ever becoming fully domesticated. Think about it. A dog waits for your command. It looks into your eyes. It wants your approval. A cat? It might ignore you completely, even after you fed it all day. So here's the mystery. If cats have been living with humans for nearly 10,000 years, why do they still behave like tiny wild predators? Why do they hunt even when they're not hungry? Why do they suddenly sprint across the house for absolutely no reason? And why does your house cat share so many behaviors with lions, tigers, and leopards? The answer takes us back to a time before cities, before kingdoms, before written history, to a world where humans had just begun to change the planet forever. Around 12,000 years ago, our ancestors made one of the biggest discoveries in human history. They learned how to farm. Instead of wandering across the landscape, they stayed in one place. They built villages, stored grain. And for the first time, humans had something they had never possessed before, huge supplies of food. But those mountains of grain attracted something unexpected. Mice, thousands and thousands of mice. For the rodents, these early villages were paradise. Food was everywhere. Predators were almost nowhere. Their population exploded. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of those villages, another animal was watching. A small, silent, wild hunter. The African wildcat. Unlike wolves, these animals weren't interested in humans. They weren't looking for friendship. They weren't searching for protection. They were following their next meal. And humans just happened to be standing between them and an endless supply of mice. Neither species planned what happened next. Humans didn't decide to tame wildcats, and wildcats never decided to serve humans. Instead, both species discovered that living near each other was simply a very good deal. But here's where the story becomes truly fascinating. Because unlike dogs, cats never gave up their independence. And that single difference would shape their relationship with humans for the next 10,000 years. At first, the relationship was incredibly simple. Humans stored grain, grain attracted mice, and mice attracted wildcats. The cats hunted, the humans lost fewer crops, both species benefited. Without saying a single word, they had formed an alliance. But something very unusual was happening. Unlike wolves, wildcats weren't changing their behavior to impress humans. They weren't looking for affection. They weren't waiting for commands. They simply tolerated our presence. Scientists believe this is one of the biggest reasons cats were never fully domesticated. Dogs evolved to work with humans. Cats evolved to work beside humans. There's a huge difference. A wolf that feared humans struggled to survive near ancient camps. Over thousands of years, the friendliest wolves reproduced. Generation after generation, they became calmer, more social, more dependent on people. Eventually, they became dogs. Wildcats faced a completely different challenge. They didn't need humans to hunt. They didn't need humans to protect them. And they certainly didn't need humans to teach them how to survive. They were already perfect hunters. In fact, even today, a house cat's hunting instincts are almost identical to those of its wild ancestors. Watch your cat stare silently at a bird. Notice how it crouches, its tail perfectly still. Its eyes locked on the target. Then, without warning, it explodes forward. That sequence is almost unchanged after thousands of years. Scientists have even compared the DNA of modern house cats with African wildcats. The results were astonishing. Genetically, they're incredibly similar, far more similar than dogs are to wolves. In evolutionary terms, cats have barely changed. Their bodies remained almost the same. Their instincts remained almost the same. Even their brains changed very little. Which raises an even bigger question. If cats never truly changed, then why do they purr, sleep beside us, and sometimes seem to enjoy human company? Were they secretly becoming domesticated in a completely different way, or did they discover something even smarter? The answer may be hiding inside your own home. Think about the last time your cat rubbed its face against your leg. It probably looked like a sign of affection, and sometimes it is. But that's not the whole story. Cats have special scent glands around their cheeks, their forehead, and the base of their tail. When they rub against you, they're leaving behind their scent. In the animal world, that's a powerful message. It means this is familiar. This is safe. This belongs in my territory. In other words, your cat isn't just greeting you, it's making you part of its world. But here's the fascinating part. Cats don't see humans the way dogs do. Dogs often treat humans like leaders, members of their pack, animals to follow. Cats don't seem to think that way. Studies suggest many cats interact with humans in surprisingly similar ways to how they interact with other cats they trust. They purr, they rub against you, they slowly blink. Sometimes they even raise their tails when they see you. These aren't signs of obedience, they're signs of comfort, of familiarity, and sometimes of genuine trust. This is why cats rarely obey commands the way dogs do. It's not because they're less intelligent, far from it. Scientists have found that cats are perfectly capable of recognizing their own names. In experiments, many cats clearly reacted when their names were spoken. They simply chose not to respond. To a dog, pleasing its owner is often part of the reward. To a cat, the reward has to be worth the effort. If there's nothing to gain, it usually won't bother. This independence isn't a flaw, it's a survival strategy. For thousands of years, wildcats survived by relying on themselves. Unlike wolves, they hunted alone, they defended territory alone, and they made decisions alone. Evolution shaped them to trust their own instincts, not the commands of someone else, which makes the relationship between humans and cats unlike almost any other in the animal kingdom. Because while dogs were changing to fit into the human world, cats were quietly convincing humans to fit into theirs. And that's where this story takes its most unexpected turn. For centuries, people believed that cats couldn't be trained. They were seen as stubborn, unpredictable, even selfish. But modern science tells a very different story. Researchers have discovered that cats are far more intelligent than most people realize. They can recognize their owner's voice, remember familiar faces, learn routines, and even predict when you're about to feed them. So if they're smart enough to understand us, why do they ignore us so often? The answer is motivation. Dogs were bred for thousands of years to work alongside humans, herding sheep, guarding homes, pulling sleds, following commands. The dogs that cooperated best were the ones that survived and reproduced. Generation after generation, humans shaped their behavior. Cats never went through that process. Almost nobody selectively bred cats for obedience. There was no need. They already performed the one job humans wanted. They hunted pests, and they did it extremely well. In fact, one healthy cat can catch hundreds of rodents in a single year, without training, without supervision, without expecting anything in return. From a farmer's perspective, that was the perfect partner, which meant humans never tried to change who cats really were. Instead, we simply accepted them exactly as they were, independent, curious, and impossible to control completely. That's why even today your house cat still behaves like a miniature wild predator. It stalks invisible prey, it hides inside boxes. It climbs to high places. It watches everything before making a move. Even during sleep, its ears remain alert, listening for the smallest sound. These aren't random habits, they're ancient survival instincts that have survived for thousands of years. But perhaps the most remarkable discovery isn't how little cats changed, it's how much they changed us. Because somewhere along the way, humans stopped seeing cats as useful hunters and started seeing them as family,